Hey everyone, it's Patrick Bell with the Consulting Kingdom. I'm here today with Bianca Jansen of Studio 98 Consulting out of Stellenbosch, South Africa. I'm so excited for this. Bianca, you're so welcome today.
You. Yeah, it's really exciting for me as well.
Good. I'm so glad you're here. Okay, so talk to me about consulting in South Africa. What is that environment like? Let talk about maybe we can go about life in South Africa. I mean, maybe it's normal for you because you're obviously South African. You've grown up there. For our audience,
Yeah.
maybe a lot of it could be exotic, and we hear about how dangerous it is and different things. Talk to us about South Africa and working there, living there.
Yeah. So something I will say is I kind of have like a combination of the best of both worlds because um, although I live in South Africa, and I will say this, we're quite fortunate to live in a very beautiful area, and one of the areas that are considered as safe still. Um, but I work remote for an American company. So it's quite interesting because I think for the most part, our experiences as consultants are probably similar or have
Okay.
a lot of similarities. I think, I just have a handful of experience when it comes to South African clients or businesses. And ones that I do have experience with, they are very much like entrepreneurial spirits. They started their businesses just because they had a craft and realized that they could turn that passion into something that brings back a monetary return. So yeah, I will say that the American clients that I've worked with and that we actively work with, the goal is much bigger usually. It's a much more steadfast. I want to build. I want to have a big company type of style, whereas the South African clients I work with are much more like we're just happy to pay the bills and maybe have a handful of staff. They don't have as big of goals. There obviously are people who have that as well, but the ones that we've worked with have just been quite happy to have their little business.
That's interesting. I'm just kind of reflecting on, what are values in life? And a lot of people value money, obviously, is like it's a very high value and success and growing to the top. And, over the course of life, one of the greatest moments is where you can sit down with friends across a picnic table or across at a restaurant or in your home and share a meal with some true friends. And so if the that's a high value, being with your family and going to sports games with your kids or whatever, those are high values for people. Think about why is it the business goals are so high or so extreme or so valuable when by themselves are almost just empty unless you're a missional business and you're on a mission to do something. There's a lot of value in that as well. Okay,
Yeah.
so what's your specific area of expertise in the consulting realm?
So if you get very granular, it's digital marketing. But we do, overall marketing is very much my interest. I think we've had to, we've had to adapt to the digital environment and
Yeah.
the opportunities that it can bring.
How many, like, do you have a lot of clients that you serve? Like,
Yeah.
what's your marketing spend? Like, how do you, like, what volume are you doing here?
So we have about just short of 60 subscribe, what we call as a subscribed marketing client, right? So these are steadfast clients who we serve every single month. And honestly, the capacity of that ranges from, again, just someone who has a craft. We have a customer who it's just the cutest thing. She's this cute little old lady, and she puts on like a little princess dress or a princess dress and goes to birthday parties and dresses like the girls in their little princess dresses and brings tiaras. And so it ranges from that to some of really really large enterprise businesses. I think the third largest diamond manufacturer is one of our clients as well. So it really ranges from just someone who is doing their own little thing to very big goals, very big enterprise clients.
Okay. And so, are you used to working with small budgets, or like who's your ideal customer trying to get out there?
So I would say when it comes to marketing, and this is just a personal preference, this is probably not the business preference, but my personal preference is not a startup. Because that usually does take, I'm sure you'll know, a lot more of investments, and there's a lot more to risk when you're just starting up, right? So when it comes to startup businesses, what I personally prefer is to give them the tools and resources to start themselves off,
Okay.
unless there obviously is a scope of budgets. But for the most part, if someone has just realized, hey, I have this thing that I can actually turn into a business, they haven't preempted for the budget side of marketing. I often find with small to medium sized businesses, marketing was the last thing that they had in mind.
Interesting.
Um, and so with my ideal client is someone who potentially has already set something small up or tried something on their own, even when it comes to marketing. And then we swoop in and kind of go, okay, well, let's lay down a proper foundation. Let's build the home from the bottom up. I think I would consider a client who is making lower than $500,000 revenue a year, that wouldn't be my client, if I could say it that way. Anyone
Yeah.
else is our client. And
Okay.
even the ones below 500,000, that is still our client, just in a different scope, right? Like I had mentioned, we can still help them, we can still serve them, just in a different way than we would serve, the businesses who already have accounted for some sort of budget.
So, clients making 500,000 or more in revenue, do you have a specific type of industry that you find you can get greater success in?
We'll say, um, I again, just a personal preference, probably. I love working with clients who do service based things. Retail product, that's obviously like much more cutthroat when it comes to,
Mm,
obviously, if you're going up against companies like Nike, for example, if you're selling, shoes or whatever the case is, you're going up against a lot of large enterprise industries. And I think I really like the local plumber and the local type of businesses. Those are the ones that I love to work with. I think it's mostly because you really get to build a personal relationship with them.
yeah.
And again, and a lot of times it's because that was just something they liked to do at some point, or maybe they just had some knowledge on it and they've managed to turn it into something and they really need that help in just taking it that step further. So yeah, that's my ideal client is the plumber, the builder, the I wouldn't obviously like we wouldn't steer clear of anyone. We range from working with lawyers to doctors to all types of different industries.
Well, the lady who dresses up in a princess dress, I mean, you must have
Yeah.
some great social media that you can build out of that for her. That would be so fun. It sounds like, to
Yeah.
take on someone like
And
that. It's just a joyful thing to do, right?
yeah, yeah. It's honestly, it just brings me joy even to just have conversations with her. Like the little child in me comes out. One of our clients that I really love working with, they actually have the cutest little thing on their website. It's a non-profit company, and they do like service dogs. They work with service dogs. They train them up and so forth. And they have a puppy cam where once they've had a litter born,
Fun.
the little room that they like raise them in the first couple of weeks, they have a live cam 24/7. Oh, it's the cutest. It's so
I
cute. So
bet.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
definitely honestly a large range of clients. I wouldn't be able to pinpoint or narrow down who is and who isn't the type of person we want to work with. I would say this, though, we obviously, and I'm sure having some consulting background yourself, it's very important to us that we work with good people.
hmm.
And if you're a good person trying to do good, you're our guy.
Okay. So how did you get into this then? Like you grew up in, you were telling me before, you grew up in Johannesburg. You've moved out to Stellenbosch, which my wife and I were very privileged to visit about 2.5 years ago. What a gorgeous part of the world! And so, we're a little bit jealous that it's like, oh, I'd love to come visit you there. And I just remember walking around town, and I think we watched the high school students playing a rugby game and walked through the
Mhm.
university there. It's so beautiful. And stayed in Airbnb there and visited some friends. And what a special place that is. So, what got you into the consulting field? Then, what was that journey like?
Yeah, so this is actually very interesting, because it's quite a unique start actually. So I majored in early childhood education and psychology. So I have a degree in that. And that's why I said it's, quite a unique start to consulting. That kind of fostered a little bit of an obsession and curiosity about how childhood shapes behavior, um, which, thinking back on it now, it's probably the reason why I am doing what I do now. I just have this obsession with understanding how the foundation of something influences a later trend of decision making. And obviously, as I had said, it's just, it almost doesn't make sense if you just say, oh, well, this is what I actually have a degree in, and
Right.
that's just transversed into this other thing. But how I actually got into consulting is I was teaching at the third best Anglican based girls' school in South Africa. I was teaching there for 6 years, and I had found out that I was expecting our son. And I realized two things during my expecting journey. One, I have a very deep desire to be present in my child's life
Yeah.
because, having been in that environment, I saw the drastic impact of a parent, having a parent obviously present in a child's life. And then the second thing is, I have a very deep need to remain curious. So it was like a non negotiable, it was a given. Regardless of what happens next, I have to still challenge my curiosity.
Yeah.
And that's that's how I got where I am now.
Okay. So, how do you like? You went from early childhood education. It seems a theme for a lot of us. My first college graduation was from a police college. My next one was a degree in English. I did a degree in intercultural studies, a master's in intercultural studies, and then later was an MBA. But it wasn't until I was, I don't know, 40 or something that I really got, 35, 40, got into marketing and business growth, and so many journeys in the middle of that. And so you've gone from early childhood education to really becoming a master of digital marketing, which, okay, so how do you continue to learn and grow in this field? Because it's such a fast moving field, such, the growth there is like hypersonic speed. How do you keep up and actually stay ahead?
No, I will say this, that you really, that is such a difficult question to just like off the bat. Well, these are the like five best things to do to
Yeah,
keep up the pace. Um, if I can answer it from a personal perspective, and I guess this would also be like a good indication if someone had to sit next to me now who knows me really well and had to answer this question, they would probably tell you that like it's just very much in my nature. It, I struggle to almost explain it, but it's just that I almost say I usually call it like an annoying curiosity to understand how things work.
yeah,
And uh, if someone is talking about their business, even if they just mention something like, "Oh yeah, this is like I have this opportunity to do this," and or I started this business a while back, I'm very like it kills me not to be able to ask them questions, to just kind of sit there, and I'm always empty to asking questions and going, "Well, what does that do? How does that work? Oh, you've
sure,
done that." I've actually had I've found myself in the past having to apologize and just like, I'm so sorry that I'm overwhelming you with all my questions, even in like just our personal relationships and things. I think people will always say that I'm the one who asks the most questions. But because of that question asking and that curiosity, I never sit still. My husband can account for that. I'm
yeah,
very much always on the go. And that's translated into my career or my journey as a consultant as well, is just never being able to accept things for what they are or what they seem to be, I would say. I'm always like, what's the next thing? How's that changing? How does that work? Um,
Yeah.
and that's really how I think I can stay on top of things, is just always being curious about, almost being curious about the future, um, more than the relevance of the past, if I could put it that way.
Interesting. So, do you have like a favorite resource, a person like I've studied Seth Godin, Neil Patel, all these guys, marketing through the years, Rich Sheffrin, Ryan Dice, all those guys. Do you have like a favorite resource, a favorite person or someone that you follow and you learn from?
Yeah, so there's actually a podcast that I really, again, the word obsession comes to mind. I really love listening to this podcast. I find myself listening to some of the episodes several times. And it's a podcast called Tropical MBA. So that's, and honestly, I am not a reader. I would love to be, but I'm also a mom. So I had to decide, am I going to be a mom or am I going to be a reader? I
Yeah,
still
yeah.
haven't found the trick to being both. So maybe someone's wife can, just pop a comment below and give me some advice on how I can make that work. But I love listening to audiobooks, and I absolutely love just listening to obviously podcasts as well. I find myself purchasing books, like the James Clear, the all the ones that they tell you to read, the Diary of a CEO, all of those types of books. But I have the on-hand copy, and then I'll just rather listen to the audiobook of that. Um, there are two books I think I've completely actually myself committed to and read, and both of them are from Jay Shetty. So that's more like a spiritual, in your own personal life type of reading.
Oh, so you mentioned spiritual. Tell us how your faith impacts your journey, and your consulting journey.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, straight off the bat, I I think of two scriptures. Honestly, like these are two scriptures that, if I had to say, these are the things that I base my consulting off of. Um, it's Matthew 6:27, where Jesus asks, "Which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to the span of life?"
That's good.
And I that scripture to me is, so important, because you've mentioned the word yourself. It's just such a fast-paced industry, and it's very, very easy to get anxious in
Yeah.
an industry like this. Very easy to get anxious when you're starting a business. It's very easy to get anxious when you're trying to grow a business. And I think that's really helped ground me and just reassured me, nothing is really that deep. Worrying won't change the trajectory of the outcome. Um, and I think that's also just reminded me to turn my focus to solutions rather than the problem. And then the other verse is a very common one. Actually, I've realized that I used to think this is like the most special verse and just I know about it. And then every time I speak about it and I say, well, this is one of my favorite verses, the other person will usually say, oh, it's mine too. But Jeremiah 29:11, I know the plans I have for you. That's what the Lord declared: plans to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you hope in the future. Again, just very instrumental verse in my personal life and obviously professional life. I think that just always reassures me that everything will work out for the good, and to the glory of God, of course. So those are two verses that I think very much just zone me in, keep me calm in worrying situations, troubling situations. And as a consultant, I'm sure you'll be able to account for it. People usually are not looking for us unless something is wrong.
Yeah.
So,
True.
yeah.
Yeah. My wife always says, we're obviously in a startup and getting things going and all that. She always says, this is not an emergency room, right? We're not a hospital. It's not an emergency room. Take your time, slow down. And it's a constant reminder to me. But I mean, also in the marketing area, and one of my roles at Kingdom Growth Engine is as CMO. interim CMO until we find someone better and more skilled at this. But I'm always like, okay, what do we do next? Like, of the myriad of things that we could do in marketing, what can we do next? And often it's about, we take our own advice. Like, I want to grow in the area, let's say, of joint ventures, alliances, host beneficiary relationships, whatever. And I want to grow in that by 10% this year, or I want to initiate that this year. So, what steps could I take this week to build a joint venture this week? Recognizing that I want to get, there's a certain path, there's a destination where we're going to get, where we got all these joint ventures humming along, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be humming along this week. But I can take a step this week to make sure that I'm on the road to accomplishing that. And let's say by the end of the year, or end of 12 months from now, we have a solid set of joint ventures. But we can do the same with our website. There's always something to fix, right? We can do more video marketing. We can do or more better email marketing. We can grow our lists. Like the possibilities are out there, and you can't stay up, waking. You can't stay up all night. You don't have to stay up all night. All you have to do is stay awake during the day.
Yeah.
Right.
Um,
So
just hearing you say that, that just makes me anxious. Honestly, that hearing that, oh, we also could do this, and we also could do this, and we also could do this. And that's unfortunately the reality of what a lot of businesses face. They get caught in that web of, oh, our competitor is doing this, and they're doing this, and they're doing this, and they're doing this. And I have a great metaphor for this. So just the other day, myself and my team were on a call all together, and um, quite a big call. There's about 15 of us all sitting, and we're just really spinning around and talking about different situations we've run into with clients. And I said, if all of us on this call, if I had to say we're going to run a race in 2 months, okay, now you could immediately see everyone's faces. Some of them were like, "Oh my goodness, we don't. I'm not a runner. I don't run. I don't even work out." But there were also some people on the call who were like, "Okay, yeah, I can do that. I'm quite dedicated runner." And I said, and regardless of who you are or what you do, you're going to run this race. It doesn't matter whether you're prepared or not. But I've given you a timeline now, and I've told you it's going to happen,
yeah,
whether or not you're prepared. And what are you going to do after that call? Are you going to go and start preparing? Are you going to go and start looking at, well, maybe I should start running a little bit just to prepare myself, because I don't want to look like an absolute fool when the
right.
race actually does come around. Or you could be one of those people who go, well, I'm going to fix my diet. I'm going to start running, training every day. I'm going to get a bed that gives me optimal sleep. I'm going to get the best running shoes. I'm going to, you have that person. And anyway, the question comes down to, so who is most likely to win that race? Is it the guy who thought, oh, she's just joking, we're not really running a race, right? Or is it the person who went and just checked off all the possible boxes they could to prepare for it? And I always compare marketing to that. You often, when you get onto a discovery with someone, there's all these pre-assumptions of, oh, well, we don't need marketing, we don't need a website, we don't need blogs, we don't, our our audience isn't on social media, what, we don't need to post anything on there. The truth is, the more boxes you tick off, the more likely you are to be in front of your prospects, to get the opportunities. So it doesn't matter whether or not your audience is even there. There's a whole algorithm that plays online, and it works in favor of search engines. And so that's always what I say, is do as much as you can, but it's also okay if there are aspects of it that you're not doing yet, and
Yeah,
always attach yet to it, because your goal should always be to get to it eventually.
that's right. I had a conversation, I think it was yesterday, with someone on our marketing team, and I asked them the question. It's called the one thing question. So the question is, what one thing could we do such that by doing it, all other options become superfluous. So if I said, we sat down with your marketing team and we said, okay, you only get to take one action, or you only get to take one strategy, or only one approach. So you think, oh, I got email marketing, I got video marketing, I got social media, and it's, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Snapchat, whatever. We could do WhatsApp marketing, which is growing a little bit. We can do direct mail. We can do joint ventures. We can do um, uh, host beneficiary relationships, alliances, upsell, cross sell, downsell. Um, we can extend the longevity of the buying relationship. We can get customers to purchase more often. What one thing could we do such that by doing it, all the other options become superfluous? And of course, there's silence, because that's a hard question.
Yeah. Again, this is one of those questions where, depending on who you are, I would need the context of the industry and I would need the
Yeah,
context, and I would never make a decision like that just based off of, oh, well, email marketing seems to work for everyone. I would
right.
never take that risk, you know. Um, so unfortunately, as much as I am like a um, emotionally driven, I'm also very analytical. So I would definitely do my research first and go, this is the one thing. And I think if it's like a just high level answer, it would be the one where your audience is. That's it. So you just have to do your research to find out where that is.
Right. There's Occam's razor. Have you heard of Occam's razor? That philosophy that says it was based on, I think it was William of Ockham, who was like a 14th century monk or Franciscan friar or something. And he said, given all the possibilities, the simplest solution is usually the best. So that if I wanted to sell, let's say I'm an author and I want to sell a 10,000 copies of my book, what is the best way to do that? And Occam's razor would say, find someone who can buy all 10,000 books and just sell it to them. It's like, well, that would be easy. Well, that would probably be the best solution. And so I think of, the one thing question. What is the fastest way to build your profits and blow up, your company in a good manner? And there's often a solution there, but there's so much out of the box thinking or non-traditional ways of thinking. And you take it to someone who doesn't know much about marketing, and they go, well, let's just do Facebook ads. And I often say, when you're looking to grow a business, maybe advertising is not the best way, because there's so many things you could do before you advertise and should do. Now, if you need to grow very quickly in a certain time frame and you have the money to spend, maybe it is advertising. That could be the way. But before you do that, of course, you have to have a USP. You have to have a value pitch, right? You have to have the testimonials. You have to build all those different things. So, okay. So what are you currently learning? Like, what's your thing that you're saying, this is where I want to grow in the next 6 months personally, in terms of what you're learning about digital? Where is that for you?
So, I mean, honestly, I've been thrown between very different things recently. I think again, this was just one of the podcasts that I'd listened to the other day, of Tropical MBA, and they were talking about. I think the title of the podcast was "You don't have an operations problem, you have a sales and marketing problem,"
Hmm.
and it was quite interesting to me. And this the reason why I think this has just been stuck with me, and I'm kind of juggling around getting more data, understanding this a little bit deeper, is um, oftentimes when things go wrong in a business, or when there's not, money isn't being made, they turn to the marketer first, right? The marketing agency is the first person to get the finger, hey, what's happening, you know?
Yep.
Which is very interesting to me because we have often found that, you know, if you go from a very analytical point of view, you look at the stats, you're like, this is strange, you know, we've been doing what we've been doing all along, and it all looks good and stable. There's no big drop, there's no big concern. You start asking those deeper questions of, well, okay, so if we brought you X amount of leads, but you've claimed that none of them were sold, is that a marketing problem or is that a sales problem? We have to differentiate, you know? And I think that's a little bit of it. I hope David doesn't watch this because he's not,
You will.
he's gonna hear me saying this. But I think that's when that's an area that I'm starting to dive into now more is after marketing, something has to happen. There's a lead there, but what happens to that lead? And I think up until this point, I've been very narrowed down into we're bringing you leads, we're bringing you opportunities. Good, my job is done. But I've realized the job isn't actually done, right? Because there's a whole journey after you've brought them that lead, which could lead to success or failure. You could still potentially lose that prospect, right? So, diving a little bit more into that sales journey and the touches after someone has raised their hand and said, hey, I need your product or I need your service. What happens thereafter? So, I've become very, very emotionally driven to, to become obsessed with this next thing, which is more on the sales side. Um, and I think that the two of those things hold hands very closely. Something that I will say or add to this is that you have your like that one question, which is like a make or break question. Mine is usually if you're gonna make, if you're looking where to make your next $1 million, are you going to start fixing internal procedures or are you going to market?
Hmm.
And that usually leads to people going, hmm, hmm, your team can deliver, they've been delivering, they can continue to deliver, and that's something that can continue to grow and get better as time progresses. But if you're looking to make money, you need to market to get money.
Wow. Amazing. So I think that's generally true unless when you bring people into a business and they face chaos and very poor customer care or false promises or whatever else, and they just churn out, then it is an operations problem. Um, or you're going after the wrong people. I mean, there's so many facets to that. It's fascinating that you're looking at, I believe you because the integrity you have at Studio 98 is, supreme. So as you look at doing a great job in marketing and they're not converting, where do we look next? Well, let's look at the sales process. Where do we look next after that? Let's look at operations. How is your customer care department? How are you treating people when they come in the door? You can
Yeah,
bring them into the room, but if there's a smell in the room, they're going to leave, right?
yeah,
So that's
definitely.
a great point.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I do. And obviously, like, I would not throw out the operations side of anything at all because that's very important. And I think a lot of times people are just very imbalanced. You know, we find that there's like a spectrum, and people are either very zoned in and focused on their marketing and just always trying, like you said, to do something, some tactic. They've heard some guru talking about Facebook ads, that's the way to go. And everyone now suddenly wants to start doing Facebook ads. For us, on that scale, you have that guy, then you have the person who's so sales led and their team are so equipped to sell, which is great. But if you are so equipped to sell just with selling in mind, then you're also not really serving or helping that person.
Hmm.
And then on the very other side of the spectrum, you have that person who's so zoned into their operations that they completely forget about the other two things. And they're so zoomed in to, like, I would almost call it micromanagement, right? You have, let's say, like a very involved CEO who doesn't work on the business, they work in the business. And
Yep.
they're just constantly within the operations. So they're seeing all the things, all the flaws, and just constantly trying to fix all these flaws. But I would say take a step back, because there's probably a bigger problem looming on the other end, and
Mm.
it's your marketing. And once you step out of your operations and you start looking there, just like you've been looking there, you're also going to find a lot of stuff that needs to be fixed. So I almost want to say it's like there has to be a balance across the board. Um, the best time, there's this saying where, I don't know, it's like an environmental saying where they say the best time to plant trees was 20 years ago.
Yep.
The other best time is yesterday. I say that about marketing. The best time to have started marketing was 20 years ago. The next best time was yesterday. So, I agree with what you've said. There honestly are things in operations sometimes that also, are a little bit twitchy. But interesting enough, talking about marketing, if you really do a thorough enough job and you ask your questions correctly, like, okay, cool, so we're setting up your marketing for you. That part is handled. We can do that. We're specialists in that. Now we've marketed, but for some reason you're still not selling, you know, scratch, to pull at that rope a little bit more. You're going to find things within the sales team. Keep scratching, pull, and you find things out like people are keeping their contacts or their databases on like a sheet that no one knows where the sheet is, but it's been kept on a sheet. And you find these little small things and you're like, wow, wow.
Yep.
And we've had conversations like this with clients where it's been very difficult to go, how have you made the amount of money that you've made up until this point? You know?
Well, that's the good
So
news, because if they've made such a mess of it for so long and they're still making money, imagine what could
how are
happen
they going to
when
do
they get
if they actually
themselves
have a
sorted.
proper?
Oh my goodness. I love those
I
kind of
agree.
clients. Those are like dreams. So, well, listen, Bianca, our time is up here. I want to thank you so much for joining me on Consulting Kingdom today and our podcast today. And tell me, or tell us, where can our listeners, our viewers, find you online?
Cool. So, I mean, you're welcome to pop me a mail if there's any questions that you guys would like, or to just connect on a like a Google Meet call or something like that. You can email me at bianca@studio98.com. You can also just visit our website, studio98.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. My private account is Bianca Jansen. So you're welcome to always just look me up there as well.
Great. And then, so for those who are listening but not viewing, it's Bianca's BIANCA at Studio 98, the number's 98, studio98.com. Right. Well, thank you again so much. I really
Thank you
appreciate
so much,
this
Patrick.
opportunity to spend some time with you. And I really hope that Holly and I can get down to Stellenbosch again and get to spend
Yeah,
some time with you and your husband and your little 3-year-old.
yeah, we would love that. We really would.
All right. Blessings. Cheers.
Thanks, Patrick. Bye bye.